The forest was silent, too silent for a living world. Only the wind moved between the tall silver trees, carrying a faint echo of wings high above. A human soldier named Daniel was walking carefully, his boots sinking into the soft moss. He had been sent to scout this region after reports of strange attacks, but until now, he had found nothing but silence. He thought the forest was empty, until he heard it. A cry, small and desperate, broke the silence. It was not the sound of a bird, nor the growl of a beast. It was the trembling voice of a child. "Please, please help me." Daniel turned quickly, his hand already gripping his weapon. Out of the thick undergrowth stumbled a little alien girl. Her skin glowed faintly with a pale blue tint, and her big dark eyes were full of tears. She was no more than 8 years old, shaking as if the whole world had turned against her. She fell to her knees before him and clutched his leg with tiny hands. "Please, human," she begged, her voice breaking. "My mom is trapped in the sky hunter's nest." Daniel froze. His mind rushed with confusion. He had heard stories of the sky hunters, creatures larger than any bird, with wings that could darken the sky, predators that carried away animals, and sometimes people. But no one dared go near their nests. They were considered untouchable. He looked down at the girl. Her body was thin, her clothes torn. Her voice carried the raw pain of fear. This was not a lie. It could not be. "Where is she?" Daniel asked softly, kneeling so his face met hers. The girl pointed with a trembling finger toward the distant mountains. Through the mist, he could see dark shapes circling in the sky, great wings cutting across the sun. Each cry from above echoed like thunder through the valley. "She was gathering food," the girl whispered. "The hunter came. It took her. It took her away." She shook her head, and tears ran down her cheeks. "No one helps us. Everyone is afraid. But you're human. You're not afraid, right?" Her words stabbed Daniel's heart. He had been in many battles, faced many enemies, yet the fear in this child's eyes was harder to face than any gunfire. He wanted to tell her he was not afraid, but even his hands trembled slightly. Still, he could not turn away. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lyra," she whispered. "My name is Lyra. Please, save my mom." Daniel looked toward the sky again. The hunters were circling, their screeches tearing through the air like knives. If her mother was truly in their nest, time was running out. The beast did not keep prey alive for long. He closed his eyes for a moment. His training screamed at him to stay safe, to report back, to avoid danger. But the soldier in him, and the man inside his heart, knew he could never walk away from this child. "All right, Lyra," he said, his voice steady. "Take me to the nest. Show me where your mother is." Her eyes widened with fragile hope. She nodded quickly and grabbed his hand with surprising strength for someone so small. Come quickly," she said, pulling him toward the forest path. Daniel followed, every sense alert. The trees whispered around them, shadows moved in the corners of his eyes. The further they went, the darker the forest seemed. It was as if even nature itself feared the place they were heading to. High above, one of the sky hunters let out a cry. It was a chilling sound, filled with hunger and warning. Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon. He knew this was no ordinary mission anymore. This was a rescue. This was a fight against monsters, and it had just begun. The path grew narrower as Lyra pulled Daniel deeper into the forest. The silver trees gave way to darker, twisted trunks, their branches clawing at the sky like bony fingers. Every few steps, Daniel could hear the rustle of wings above, heavy and powerful, as if the creatures were warning them not to come closer. Lyra's small feet moved quickly, but her hands shook as she held tightly onto his. She was trying to be brave, yet every time a shadow crossed overhead, she flinched and ducked, Daniel noticed. But he did not speak. He knew that words would not stop the fear, only action could. Finally, the forest opened to a wide clearing. Beyond it, a cliff rose high into the sky, jagged rocks stretching like teeth. At the very top of the cliff was a nest, huge, messy, built from bones, branches, and scraps of metal. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He had heard of the nests, but seeing one with his own eyes made the stories real. "There," Lyra whispered, pointing with a trembling finger. "That's where they took her. My mother is inside." Daniel studied the nest carefully. At least 3 sky hunters circled above it, their wings spreading wider than a shuttle's frame. Their feathers shimmered with metallic colors, dark green and black. Their screeches shook the air, making Daniel's chest tighten. He realized these creatures were not just animals, they were killers who ruled the skies. "How long has she been up there?" he asked, his voice low. "Since morning," Lyra said. "I followed, but I could not climb, and no one in my village dared to help. They say anyone who goes near the nest never comes back." Her voice cracked as she spoke. Daniel placed his hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing finding me. I'll get her back, I promise." But even as he spoke, doubts formed in his mind. The cliff was steep, the nest was high, and the hunters were always watching. To reach the nest meant facing them directly. One wrong move could mean death for all of them. They crouched behind a fallen log, watching as one sky hunter swooped low and dropped something into the nest. Lyra gasped, her small hands covering her mouth. Daniel followed her gaze and saw movement inside the nest. A weak figure struggling. A woman, her mother, alive but trapped. Hope surged in Lyra's eyes, and Daniel felt a fire in his chest. He could not let that hope die. Still, he needed a plan. He examined the terrain. The cliff had narrow ledges, but climbing them would take time and the hunters would notice. He could try drawing them away, but one man against 3 beasts was madness. As he thought, the ground suddenly trembled with a loud thud. One of the sky hunters landed in the clearing. Its talons dug deep into the earth. Its head turned sharply, golden eyes scanning the forest. The beast sniffed the air, and Daniel realized it could smell them. "Stay down," he whispered urgently to Lyra, pulling her closer. His heart pounded as the creature stepped forward, its wings folded. But even on the ground, it was taller than 2 men. Its beak glistened with fresh blood. Lyra squeezed his arm so tightly it hurt. Her body shook, but she made no sound. Daniel raised his weapon slowly, every muscle tense. He knew that if the beast spotted them, there would be no escape. For long, endless seconds, the sky hunter sniffed the air. Its eyes narrowed toward the trees. Daniel held his breath. His finger rested on the trigger, but he knew firing would bring the other 2 hunters straight down on them. Then, with a piercing cry, the creature spread its wings and leapt back into the air, beating the ground with such force that dust and leaves swirled in every direction. Daniel shielded Lyra until the air cleared. Only then did he exhale. His mind raced. The hunters, wow. Ear too smart, too powerful. A direct attack was impossible. If he wanted to save Lyra's mother, he would need to use his brain, not just his strength. "We'll wait until dark," he told her quietly. "The night will give us cover. That's when I'll go for your mother." Lyra looked up at him with wide eyes. You will really do it?" Daniel nodded firmly. "I gave you my word, and I don't break my word." Her lips trembled, but she smiled faintly for the first time. For Lyra, that promise was everything. Daniel stared at the distant nest again. His jaw tightened. The night would be dangerous, but it was their only chance, and when darkness came, he would step into the sky hunter's territory, not as prey, but as a soldier ready to fight for a life. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky with streaks of red and gold. Shadows stretched across the forest, and the cries of the sky hunters echoed louder as if they owned the twilight. Daniel and Lyra crouched near the base of the cliff, their eyes fixed on the monstrous nest above. It loomed like a fortress of bones and broken branches, resting against jagged stone. Daniel studied it in silence. Every detail mattered. The path up, the guards in the air, the gaps in the rocks. His soldier's mind worked quickly, but his heart stayed heavy. The girl beside him was depending on him, and her mother's life ticked away with each passing minute. "Is it always this quiet before night?" Daniel asked softly. Lyra nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, it's when they hunt. They leave one to guard the nest, but the others fly out. They bring food before sunrise. If we wait too long, she will not—" Her voice broke, and she pressed her lips shut, refusing to finish. Daniel glanced at her and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "She's still alive. I saw her moving. That means we have a chance." The girl clung to those words, her wide eyes shining with fragile hope. As the last light faded, Daniel prepared. He checked his weapon, his climbing rope, and a few small devices clipped. To his belt, they were not meant for fighting giant birds, but he would have to improvise. He always had. The cliff face loomed above them, sharp and uneven, with narrow ledges like broken teeth. Daniel looked up, measuring each step in his mind. It was possible to climb, but only under cover of darkness. He glanced at Lyra. "Stay here. No matter what happens, don't move until I come back with her." Her little hands gripped his arm. "But what if they catch you?" Daniel forced a small smile, though his chest tightened. "Then I'll fight until I can't. But I'm not leaving your mother in that nest. You hear me?" Tears welled in her eyes, but she nodded bravely. With that, Daniel began the climb. The stone was cold and rough, cutting into his hands as he pulled himself upward. The night deepened, stars beginning to scatter across the sky. He moved slowly, carefully, keeping low whenever a shadow of wings passed overhead. The nest grew closer, its smell of blood and decay hitting him like a wave. Bones of smaller creatures jutted out from its edges, and something metallic glinted inside. It wasn't just a nest, it was a graveyard. Daniel's heart thumped as he reached a narrow ledge just below the nest. From here, he could see inside. His breath caught. The alien mother was there, her body tangled in branches, her skin pale and scratched. Her chest rose weakly. She was alive, but her eyes were half closed, as if slipping between life and death. Daniel whispered under his breath, "Hold on, I'm coming." But before he could move, a deep screech shattered the air. Daniel froze. One of the sky hunters swooped down, landing heavily at the edge of the nest. Its glowing eyes scanned the dark. Its head tilted as if listening. Daniel pressed himself flat against the cliff wall, his muscles screaming with tension. He dared not breathe. The beast stretched its wings, blocking the stars. Its claws scraped against the stone. Then it lowered its head, sniffing the air. For a moment, Daniel thought it would find him. His grip tightened on his weapon, sweat dripping down his temple. If it looked closer, he would have no choice but to fight, and fighting meant alerting the others. But then, a distant cry echoed in the sky, another sky hunter calling from the far side of the valley. The guardian spread its wings, gave a sharp cry in answer, and launched back into the air, vanishing into the night. Daniel let out a slow breath, his body still trembling. He turned his eyes back to the mother. Every second mattered now. He reached for his knife and began cutting carefully at the branches that held the nest together. His movements silent, precise. The forbidden nest was more dangerous than he had imagined, but he was inside its shadow now, and no matter how high the climb or how sharp the talons, he had already made a promise. And Daniel was a man who never broke promises. The night wrapped the cliff in silence, broken only by the steady rasp of Daniel's breath. He crouched just below the nest, branches scratching his arms as he cut away the twisted cage around the alien mother. Her breaths were shallow, her body weak, yet her eyes flickered open for a moment, glazed with pain but still alive. "Quiet," Daniel whispered gently. "I'll get you out." She tried to speak, but her voice was broken. Her lips moved with one word only. "Lyra." Daniel nodded. "She's safe. She's waiting for you." The mother's trembling hand weakly reached toward him, then fell back. Her strength was fading fast. Daniel worked faster, slicing through the thickest vines, but the nest seemed alive, every crack and snap of breaking wood echoing too loud in the night. He paused, listening. The air suddenly grew colder, heavier. Then he felt it, the rush of wind above. A shadow larger than anything human covered the cliff face. Daniel's heart sank. Slowly, he looked. Up, a sky hunter descended, its wings folding as it landed directly on the edge of the nest. The beast was enormous, its feathers dark as midnight, with streaks of silver glinting under the stars. Its golden eyes glowed, unblinking, its curved beak dripped with fresh blood, the remains of some other prey. The nest shook under its weight. Daniel froze in place, pressed against the branches, hoping the shadows would hide him. But the hunter tilted its head, and he knew it had already sensed him. The predator's chest rumbled with a low growl that vibrated through the nest itself. The alien mother let out a weak gasp, her fear betraying their presence. The hunter's head snapped in her direction, its talons scraping closer. Daniel's hand went to his weapon, but his mind screamed caution. One wrong move and the entire valley would echo with its call, bringing the other hunters down on them. The creature leaned closer, its beak inches from the mother, ready to strike. Daniel acted, his hand shot forward, grabbing a sharp bone from the nest floor. In a single motion, he jammed it hard against the hunter's eye. The beast screamed, a sound so loud it split the night. Its wings flared wide, beating the air into chaos. The nest shuddered dangerously, branches cracking. Daniel pulled the mother closer, shielding her from the hunter's furious strikes. The beast lashed out with a claw, scraping Daniel's arm, hot pain shooting through his muscles. He gritted his teeth, refusing to let go. From below, a scream echoed, Lyra's voice, "Mom!" The hunter turned its glowing eyes toward the sound. Its beak opened in a shriek that promised death. It spread its wings to dive after the girl, but Daniel moved first. With one desperate push, he kicked free of the nest, dragging the mother with him. Rope bit into his hands as he swung off the cliffside. The hunter lunged, its talons tearing. Through the space where they had been, Daniel and the mother dangled in midair, his body straining to hold them both. The beast roared, flapping above, its shadow chasing them along the cliff wall. Daniel swung them toward a ledge and crashed hard against the stone. His shoulder burned with pain, but he pulled the mother onto the ledge and pressed her against the wall. The sky hunter circled back, its cry tearing through the valley. Daniel knew the other hunters would hear. He didn't have much time. The nest above cracked and shook as the wounded beast clawed at its perch. Its rage focused only on him now. Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon, blood dripping from his arm. His voice was low but steady as he spoke to the faint mother beside him. "Stay alive. I'm not letting you die here." The hunter folded its wings and dived straight toward them, talons spread wide. Its massive body cut through the air like a falling star. The cliff shook with the force of its approach, and Daniel, bruised and bleeding, braced himself for the fight of his life. The sky hunter struck like a storm, talons cutting into the stone where Daniel and the alien mother had been seconds before. The cliff shook, rocks tumbling into the darkness below. Daniel rolled, dragging the weak mother with him. His chest heaved, every breath heavy. But he could not stop. Not now. The beast screeched, wings beating so hard that dust and broken branches whirled around them. Its glowing eye, the one Daniel had stabbed, bled with a burning fury. The other eye fixed on him with pure hate. This was no longer just a hunt. It was personal. Daniel pulled the mother deeper into the narrow ledge, pressing her back against the stone. She was barely conscious, her breaths thin and uneven. Still, she whispered one word again. "Lyra." "She's safe," Daniel said firmly, gripping his weapon. "But she won't be if I fail here." The hunter lunged again, its beak snapping like a blade. Daniel dodged, swinging his blade across its wing. And sparks flew as metal-like feathers deflected most of the strike, but the edge still cut deep enough to make the beast scream in pain. The cry echoed across the valley, and Daniel's heart sank. He knew that sound. It was a call, a warning, a summons. More hunters would come. He turned quickly to the mother. "We need to move now." Her body was weak, her legs shaking when he tried to lift her. Her voice cracked. I cannot walk." Daniel cursed under his breath. His rope was still tied, but climbing with her weight was nearly impossible. Still, leaving her wasn't an option. His eyes darted around, searching for any way out. That was when he saw it. The nest above, broken where he had torn through, had a hollow beneath it. A dark space carved into the cliffside, maybe an old den, maybe part of the nest structure. It was their only chance. "Hold on," Daniel muttered, scooping her into his arms. She was light, frighteningly light. Her head fell against his shoulder, but her eyes fluttered open for a moment, looking at him as though she saw a miracle. He leapt from the ledge as the hunter's talons slammed down behind him. The beast shrieked in frustration as Daniel slid into the hollow space, pulling the mother with him. They tumbled inside, darkness swallowing them. The hunter's claws raked against the stone entrance, but its body was too large to follow. For the first time they had a barrier. The space smelled of death and rot. Bones littered the ground, remnants of prey dragged here long ago. The sound of the mother's shallow breathing filled the silence. Daniel knelt, setting her gently against the wall. His hands moved quickly, tearing fabric from his own sleeve to bandage her wounds. "You're safe for now," he whispered, though his own arms bled freely. The mother's lips parted. Her voice was faint but clear. Why would you risk this? You are not one of us." Daniel paused, his hands tightening around the cloth. He thought of Lyra, her desperate eyes, her small voice begging for her mother's life. Then he looked at this woman, broken yet still clinging to life. Because your daughter asked me to, he said quietly, and because I don't walk away from people who need me. For the first time, her eyes softened, tears glistening faintly. She whispered, "You are not like others." Before Daniel could reply, a thunderous cry shook the night. The ground trembled. He crawled to the hollow's entrance and looked out. His worst fear was true. 2 more sky hunters circled the cliff, answering the wounded one's call. Their shadows crossed the stars. Their screeches promised death. Daniel's jaw tightened. He turned back to the mother. "We don't have much time. If we stay here, they'll tear this whole place apart. I need to get you out of this prison." Her hand reached for his, weak but full of desperate trust. "Then, take me to Lyra." Daniel nodded once, firm and steady. He had no idea how, but he would. He had promised Lyra. He had promised himself. Outside, the hunters circled lower, their cries echoing like drums of war. The prison of the nest was not just made of bones and branches. It was guarded by the sky itself, and Daniel was about to challenge it. The hollow shook with every beat of wings outside. Dust fell from the stone ceiling, and the cries of the sky hunters echoed through the night. Daniel knew they could not stay hidden for long. The beasts were searching, circling, waiting. The alien mother leaned weakly against the wall, her breaths shallow. Her glowing eyes followed Daniel as he paced in the cramped space. His mind worked fast. He could not carry her and fight the creatures at the same time. Yet leaving her behind was not an option. He turned to her, voice steady. "If I try to fight them head on, we die. If we wait here, we die. So there's only one choice. We make a distraction." Her lips parted, her voice a faint whisper. "Distraction? Against them? That's madness." Daniel gave a small, grim smile. "I've lived on madness before." He checked his belt, pulling free the few tools he carried, a flare, a smoke charge, and 2 small explosive beacons. None of them were designed to fight monsters of the sky, but together they might buy him time. The mother's gaze softened. "Why risk yourself this way? You don't even know us." Daniel tightened the strap on his arm, ignoring the sting of his wound. "Your daughter begged me to save you, and I made her a promise. I don't break promises." Something in her expression shifted. She no longer looked at him like a stranger, but with the fragile trust of someone holding on to hope. Outside, the screeches grew louder. One of the hunters landed on the cliff above, its talons scraping stone. The hollow shook as dust poured down. The mother flinched, fear flashing in her eyes. Daniel pressed a finger to his lips. "Stay quiet, whatever happens." He crawled to the entrance of the hollow and looked out. The night sky was filled with shadows. 3 hunters circled, one already wounded but still furious. Its golden eyes burned with vengeance. The others screeched in answer. Their wings blocked the stars like thunderclouds. Daniel took a deep breath, then pressed the flare into the ground just outside the hollow. A blinding red light erupted, flooding the cliffside with fire-like glow. The hunters shrieked in surprise, drawn toward the sudden blaze. He followed quickly, throwing the smoke charge into the open air. Thick gray clouds burst upward, swirling against the cliff face. For a moment the hunters faltered, their sharp eyes struggling to pierce the haze. "This is our chance," Daniel muttered, pulling the mother into his arms. She was weak, barely able to keep her head up, but she clung to his shoulder with trembling fingers. He moved along the cliff, every step a careful balance between life and death. Behind them, the wounded hunter dove straight into the smoke, its cry filled with rage. Daniel's heart hammered as he clipped one of the explosive beacons to a rock and slammed the trigger. Boom! The explosion ripped through the night, echoing like thunder. The cliff shook violently, and part of the nest above crumbled, debris raining down. The hunters screamed in fury, their wings beating hard as they scattered upward, searching for the source of the blast. Daniel pressed himself against the wall, shielding the mother as stones crashed around them. His arms burned with the effort of holding her, but he kept moving, step by step along the ledge. Are we free?" the mother whispered weakly. "Not yet," Daniel answered, his eyes locked on the swirling shadows above. "But we're buying time." He set the second beacon on a higher ledge, this time timing it carefully. When the nearest hunter swooped low, its talons reaching for them, Daniel hit the trigger. The blast erupted directly in its path. For a moment, the beast shrieked in pain, its wing feathers scorched, and it spiraled upward. The mother gasped, her hand clutching his shoulder. You fight them like you were born for this, Daniel grunted. No, I fight because I don't run. The smoke began to clear and the hunters regrouped, circling once more. Their cries sharper now, filled with killing intent. Daniel's jaw tightened. His plan had bought them minutes, maybe less. He needed a way down the cliff and back to Lara before the creature struck again. He looked toward the valley floor, far below. His rope dangled uselessly. It would never hold their combined weight and time. His eyes darted to the broken branches of the nest above, still smoking from the blast. A dangerous idea formed in his mind. It wasn't a good plan, but it was the only one left. He adjusted his grip on the mother and whispered firmly, "Hold on to me, no matter what happens." Her eyes widened, fear mixing with trust. What are you going to do?" Daniel glanced once more at the circling hunters, their wings cutting through the moonlight. He steadied his breath. "Something stupid," he muttered, "but maybe stupid will keep us alive." And with that, he prepared to challenge the sky itself. The cliff trembled under Daniel's boots as he shifted the alien mother's weight against his chest. Above them, the sky was alive with shadows. 3 sky hunters circled, their wings blotting out the stars. Their cries split the night like jagged blades. The smoke from his charges had faded. The brief distraction was gone. Now it was only him, a dying woman in his arms, and monsters that ruled the air. Daniel's eyes narrowed at the nest's broken edge, splintered by his earlier blasts. Branches still burned faintly, smoke curling upward. An insane thought formed in his mind, reckless and deadly, yet the only chance, he muttered under his breath. "If I can't beat them on the ground, then I'll fight them in the sky." The mother stirred weakly, her voice trembling. You cannot. They are hunters of the wind." Daniel gave a short, grim smile. "Then I'll turn the wind against them." He strapped her tightly against him with the last of his rope. His every muscle ached, his wounds throbbed, but he forced his body steady. He grabbed a smoldering branch from the nest wreckage and held it high. Flames licked the night and the smell of burning wood carried on the wind. The sky hunters screamed at once, their golden eyes locking onto him. They dove together, wings folding into spears of death. The air pressure roared against the cliffside. Daniel jumped. He leapt straight off the ledge into the void, the mother bound to him, the burning branch blazing like a falling star. The ground rushed up beneath them, but Daniel's hand shot to his belt, activating his grav chute. The device sputtered to life, slowing their fall into a wild, jerking glide. The hunters shrieked in fury, their talons snapping as they chased him through the open air. Daniel weaved, barely controlling the chute. Every gust of wind threatened to smash them into the cliff face, but the burning branch drew the beasts closer, just as he planned. "Come on, you monsters," Daniel growled. "Come and get me." The first hunter struck, its beak slashing across the air. Daniel twisted hard, sparks erupting as the beast's talons scraped against the grav chute's frame. He swung the burning branch into its face. The fire singed its feathers, and the creature screamed, spiraling back. The second came from below, wings snapping upward to slice them apart. Daniel hit the trigger on his last smoke charge and flung it downward. The explosion of gray clouds blinded the beast mid-flight. It crashed into its wounded companion with a thunderous crack of wings and screeches. But the third, the largest, the one he had stabbed in the eye, did not falter. It roared, a sound that shook Daniel's bones, and dived faster than the others. Its massive shadow swallowed him whole. Daniel gritted his teeth. Not today. He shifted the chute hard, diving straight toward the valley floor. The beast followed, its talons stretched wide. Daniel lit the last flare at his belt and hurled it behind him. The sky exploded with red fire, blinding the hunter for a second, just enough. The ground was too close now, rushing up like a black sea. Daniel yanked the emergency cords on the grav chute. The device screamed and slowed, jerking his body so hard he thought his ribs cracked. The mother groaned faintly against him, still alive. They hit the ground hard, rolling across the mossy earth. Daniel clutched the mow. They're tight, protecting her with his body until they came to a stop near the tree line. Every muscle burned, but they were alive. Above, the sky hunters shrieked in rage. Their wings beat the air furiously, circling, searching. But the thick forest canopy now shielded Daniel and the mother. The hunters could not follow them into the tight, twisting trees. Daniel lay on the ground, gasping. His chest rose and fell like a hammer. He looked at the pale face of the mother, her breathing weak but steady. He whispered, "We're not done yet, but we're not dead either." She opened her eyes faintly, tears glistening. You are not afraid of the sky." Daniel gave a tired half smile. "Fear's still there. I just don't let it win." The forest shook again as the hunters screeched. Their shadows passed overhead, refusing to leave. They would hunt again at dawn, he knew it. But for now, he had stolen both the mother and time from the sky itself, and fire still burned in his eyes, ready for the next fight. The forest floor was damp and cold, but Daniel hardly noticed. His chest rose and fell in sharp bursts, every breath tasting of smoke and blood. The alien mother lay in his arms, her body trembling, her breaths weak but steady. He had carried her through fire and sky, and now, finally, her prison of bones and wings was behind them. Above, the sky hunters screeched, their cries shaking the treetops. They circled again and again, furious that their prey had slipped from their claws. Yet the thick canopy shielded Daniel. Every time the beasts swooped low, their massive wings cracked against branches, forcing them higher. They would not risk flying into the maze of trees. Daniel pressed the mother gently against a thick root and crouched beside her. His arm bled freely from deep claw marks. His body screamed with exhaustion, but his eyes stayed sharp, scanning the forest for an eye movement. He knew the fight was not over, only delayed. The mother stirred, her glowing eyes opening slightly. Her lips trembled with a single word, "Lyra." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He turned quickly and raised his voice, low but steady. "Lyra, it's safe. Come out." For a moment there was silence. Then from behind a fallen log, small footsteps rushed forward. A tiny figure stumbled through the leaves, tears already streaming down her pale cheeks. "Mom!" Lyra cried, her voice breaking. She ran and fell to her knees beside the mother. Her small hands touched her mother's face with trembling care. "You're alive! You're alive!" The mother's weak hand rose, brushing against Lyra's cheek. Her voice cracked with emotion. "My little one, I thought I would never see you again." Daniel looked away for a moment, letting the reunion breathe. The ache in his arms, the sting of his wounds, all of it felt distant as he watched them cling to each other. Their bond was stronger than fear, stronger than the hunters themselves. But the moment could not last. Above, another screech rang out, closer this time. The shadows of the hunters flickered through gaps in the branches, searching. Daniel stepped closer, his voice calm but urgent. "We need to move. They won't give up. If we stay here, they'll find a way to get us." Lyra looked up at him, her big dark eyes wet with tears. "But she can't walk. She's too weak." Daniel's jaw tightened. He crouched down, slipping his arms beneath the mother once more. She was light, frighteningly light, as if the life had been drained from her. He lifted her against his chest, ignoring the burning pain in his arm. "I'll carry her," he said firmly. "But we move now." The mother's voice was faint. "You've already done too much. You'll die if you keep this up." Daniel met her gaze with steel in his eyes. "Then I'll die moving forward, not waiting to be hunted." Lyra wiped her face and stood tall as her small body allowed. "I'll guide us. I know the way back to the village," Daniel gave. He heard a sharp nod. "Good. Stay close. Don't let go of my hand." They moved through the forest, Daniel carrying the mother, Lyra leading the way. The trees creaked overhead as the hunters circled above. Every cry they gave rattled Daniel's bones, but he kept moving, step by step. His boots sank into mud, his body screamed for rest, but he refused to stop. At one point, the sky opened in a small clearing. A hunter swooped low, its talons reaching between the trees. Daniel dove behind a rock, covering the mother and Lyra with his body. The beast's claws tore through the earth, missing them by inches. With a furious screech, it pulled back into the sky. Daniel's breath came heavy, his arms shaking, but he forced himself back up. Lyra's little hand clung to his tightly, her voice soft but fierce. "Don't stop. We're almost there." Finally, after what felt like an endless march, The forest began to thin. Lights flickered ahead. Faint, warm, the glow of fires. The village. Lyra gasped, hope breaking through her tears. Home! Daniel staggered forward, his strength nearly gone, but the sight of the village gave him new fire. The mother stirred weakly in his arms, whispering through cracked lips, "You kept your promise." Daniel looked at her, then at Lyra, and nodded once, his voice steady even as his body faltered. "I said I would bring you back, and I did." As they crossed into the edge of the village, shapes rushed forward, aliens with wide eyes, gasping at the sight. The mother carried by a human, the child clutching his hand, and the echo of sky hunters screaming above. But for now, for this moment, she was safe. The rescue was real, and the sky no longer had her in its claws. The village lights glowed faintly against the darkness, warm fires burning in clay bowls. Daniel's tired legs almost buckled with relief. He could see safety, shelter, walls, people, yet the forest around them told a different story. The cries of the sky hunters grew sharper, closer, like war drums pounding in the sky. The villagers rushed forward as Daniel carried the alien mother in his arms. Lyra clung to his side, her small hand gripping his sleeve tightly. Whispers spread like fire. The human, he brought her back. She's alive. How is it possible? But before anyone could say more, a screech split the night, louder than any before. The villagers froze, looking up in terror. Above the treetops, 3 massive shapes circled. Their wings beat the air so fiercely that the ground shook. The sky hunters had followed, and this time they were coming for blood. Daniel's eyes darted upward. His heart sank. He knew this wasn't over. The beast would not stop until they reclaimed their prey. The villagers began to panic, some running, others grabbing whatever weapons they had. But Daniel could see the truth in their faces. They were afraid, too afraid to stand against monsters of the sky. He lowered the mother gently onto a blanket. A villager spread on the ground. Her hand clutched his wrist weakly. "Run. Save yourself. They will kill you." Daniel shook his head firmly. "Not while you're still breathing." Lyra stepped in front of him, her little voice trembling but strong. "You can't leave us now. You promised. You said we'd be safe." Daniel looked at her, and despite the fear clawing in his chest, he felt something fierce rise inside him. He gave her a small nod. "Then we fight." The hunters screamed again. One dived, its massive wings folding as it streaked down like a thunderbolt. The villagers scattered, but Daniel ran straight toward it. His boots pounded the dirt as he yanked a smoking torch from a villager's hand. The hunter swooped low, talons outstretched. Daniel swung the torch high. Fire burst across the night. The beast recoiled, its feathers hissing at the flame. Its screech shook the earth, but Daniel stood tall, refusing to back down. The second hunter swooped from behind. Daniel rolled to the side, grabbing a spear dropped by a villager. He thrust it upward as the beast passed overhead. The tip scraped across its belly, not a killing blow, but enough to make it shriek and spiral higher. The villagers gasped, eyes wide as they watched. Some dropped their fear and picked up stones, spears, and torches. One shouted, "If the human can fight, so can we." Daniel's chest heaved, his body on fire with exhaustion, but he saw the spark. Hope was spreading. The hunters were mighty, but they were not gods. They could bleed. They could be fought. The largest hunter, the one with the wounded eye, shrieked with rage. Its cry split the night as it dived again. Faster, fiercer than before. Daniel braced himself, his grip tight on the spear. At the last moment he hurled it straight into the beast's face. The spear struck true, sinking into its already wounded eye. The hunter screamed, its wings beating wildly as it crashed into the trees beyond the village. The ground shook with the impact. Branches snapped. Dust rose high. For a moment there was silence. Then the final hunter screeched, circling above. Its wings darkened the stars. It dived, talons wide, straight toward the mother lying weak on the blanket. Lyra screamed, "Mom!" Daniel ran faster than his body should have allowed. His legs burned, but he leapt, grabbing another torch. He threw it high into the air. The flame arced like lightning, striking the hunter across its chest. The beast roared in fury, twisting midair. Its wing clipped the roof of a hut, sending G sparks into the night, but it missed its target, soaring upward again. The villagers, hearts pounding with newfound courage, surged forward with torches and spears. Together they threw fire into the air, shouting and screaming. The hunters, wounded and enraged, circled one last time, their cries full of hate. Then slowly, they pulled away, wings carrying them back into the night. The village shook with silence, only the crackle of fire and the labored breaths of Daniel filling the air. He fell to his knees, his body finally giving in to exhaustion. Lyra rushed to him, hugging his arm tightly. "You did it. You saved her. You saved us." The mother's weak voice carried over the hush. "No, he saved more than us." Her eyes, pale but shining, looked at Daniel with something beyond gratitude, something close to awe. The villagers, once afraid, now gathered around, their whispers changing to cheers. They had seen the impossible. Sky hunters driven back, not by armies, but by one human who refused to let fear rule. Daniel raised his head, staring into the sky where the shadows vanished. His chest rose heavily, his body broken, but his spirit burned bright. The final flight of the sky hunters was over, but for Daniel, the fight for life was never finished. The village was quiet now, though the air still smelled of smoke and fear. Broken branches lay scattered across the ground. Huts bore scorch marks from the sky hunters' fury. Yet in the silence after battle there was something new, something Daniel could feel even as he staggered on his feet. Hope. He stood, leaning heavily on a spear for support, his arm wrapped in bloodied cloth. His eyes scanned the villagers, men and women who only hours ago had hidden from the sky. Now they stood tall, torches in hand, whispering not of fear, but of courage. And every whisper carried one name, the human. Daniel turned to where the alien mother lay on the blanket. Lyra knelt beside her, holding her hat. And as if she would never let go again, tears streaked her small face, but they were tears of joy, not despair. The mother's eyes fluttered open, her voice soft but steady now. "Lyra, my brave little one." "Mom," Lyra sobbed. "I thought I lost you." Her mother pulled her close with what little strength she had. "No, you never lost me. You gave me life again, because you never stopped believing." She turned her gaze to Daniel, her voice trembling with emotion. And because of him, Daniel shifted awkwardly, unused to the weight of so many eyes on him. "I only did what had to be done," he said simply, his tone calm but firm. The villagers murmured, some bowing their heads, others stepping forward with hesitant gratitude. An elder, his skin lined with age, spoke aloud. "Never before has anyone stood against the hunters and lived. You did not just save her, you saved us all. You showed us we can fight back." Daniel shook his head. "I didn't do it alone. I had help, a little girl who never gave up on her mother." His eyes flicked to Lyra, whose tear-streaked face lit with pride. The mother's eyes softened as she looked at him. "You carried me from the sky. You faced death for someone not of your kind. Why?" Daniel paused, his hand tightening on the spear. "Because no one deserves to be left behind. Not a soldier, not a stranger, not a mother. And because your daughter asked me, and I gave her my word. A promise means something where I come from." The mother's eyes glistened. She whispered, "Then your word has saved my life." Lyra stood suddenly and grabbed Daniel's hand with her tiny fingers. "You're family now," she said with a child's certainty. Her voice rang clear in the quiet night. "You saved my mom. That makes you part of us." Daniel blinked, caught off guard. His lips parted as if to argue, but the look in her eyes silenced him. It wasn't just gratitude. It was love, pure and unshakable, the kind only a child could give. The villagers, moved by her words, began to nod. Some placed their torches down in respect. Others murmured, "Family, protector, friend." The alien mother reached out a trembling hand toward him. "You are not just human to us anymore. You are the one who fought the sky itself to bring me back." Daniel hesitated, then took her hand gently. His rough fingers closed around her fragile ones. In that touch, something passed between them. Trust, belonging, something more powerful than fear. The night wore on, and slowly the village returned to life. Fires were rekindled, songs whispered in low voices. Lyra sat proudly beside Daniel, refusing to let go of his sleeve. Her mother rested with her head on a soft pillow, her eyes never straying far from them. Above, the stars shone bright clear for the first time without the shadows of wings. The sky hunters had retreated into the distance, but their memory would always linger. Yet the people no longer looked at the sky with only fear. They looked at it with defiance, with the knowledge that even the greatest predators could be challenged. Daniel sat quietly, exhaustion pulling at his body, but for once, his heart was at peace. He had walked into this village as an outsider, a soldier with no ties. Now he sat surrounded by people who saw him as something more, a protector, a promise keeper, a brother to those who had none. And as Lyra leaned against him, whispering softly, "Don't leave us," Daniel gave her the only answer he could: "I'm not going anywhere." For in the bond born under fire and sky, he had found something stronger than war, stronger than fear, stronger even than the hunters themselves. He had found a family,